Hello, everyone. It's Parker. Going to do a little bit of a late night live stream while I walk through the tropical rainforest of Venezuela. That's where I'm reporting from currently. Yes, just got done speaking with a shaman. Yes, of ancient tradition. We meditated for 3 days while fasting, and we pondered the quietness of a whisper. Yes. And I had a thought that I'd really like to point at some of you Christians. Now, before I get to it, there's a couple things I gotta pre-position first. Number one, it's that, as far as I'm aware, Christians believe that humans are separate from God, correct? Now, there is the saying, you can become one with God. Generally, this is a metaphor more than anything else. It's not to be taken literally. It's something you can do to show that you are one with God. You are sharing the same thinking or the same attributes maybe as God, but it's not a literal thing. Christians look down upon those who feel that they are themselves divine or one with God. It's not something they really go for. So that's one thing that needs to be prepositioned before this. I got some people talking. Hi, Robert Lunachi. Hi, Robin Banks. Apostate Babe, Linda James, hello. All right, so that's the preposition. But I have a question for Christians who feel that humans are separate from God. They are separate entities. The other thing I need to preposition before I ask this question is that it's generally accepted by all Christians that you do not have to pray out loud. Prayer is one of the fundamental aspects of Christianity. It is essential to all Christian sects that you pray. They will not disagree with the statement that you can pray internally without being verbal, without saying it into words. You can pray to God in your own head and He will hear you. Now, I don't think any Christian sect will dispute this fact. It's pretty generally accepted. Well, my question, finally, we're getting to it, is this. How can God hear your thoughts in your internal prayer if He is not one with you? I'll repeat it. How does God, Yahweh, Jehovah, Jesus, whatever you call Him, why or how can He hear your internal prayers if He is not one with you, if He is a separate entity? Now, the easy way around this, the quick and easy sort of throwaway response would be a mystical one. Well, He's just all powerful, right? He can do anything He wants. But if He can hear your thoughts in a very real way, He has become one with your thoughts. I don't think that that's beyond reasoning or logic to conclude that that's probably an accurate statement, right? If He's listening to your thoughts and you are talking to Him internally, He has become one with you, at least in that one aspect, mind. If this is so, wouldn't that lend to the idea that in a very fundamental way, at least some of the time, you are not separate entities at all from God? And does this at all give you reason to reevaluate your stance on what you believe life really is, or maybe your prepositioned notion of what paganism is, because many pagan ideologies and faiths believe that we are all divine. We are all part of the same mechanism. Anybody in the comments section want to help me tackle this one? If you are a Christian, I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? What do you think about this? Do you think that when you pray internally and God hears your prayers, that it's a separate entity that you're somehow telepathically communicating with? Or do you think that it's possible that you are one with that entity, and that's how he knows what we're doing all the time, right? Think about the mechanics of that. Think about how difficult it would be for any being to telepathically keep track of every single creature on the planet, unless he was a part of it, unless every single person, every single creature was a live feed directly through the Almighty. To me, it makes far more sense that this great entity, if you buy in the notion of a grand creator, must be fundamentally attached to every living thing. I don't know, anybody? Where's my live chat? Good question, says Robert Lunacci. Good question. So he is one with us. God is much more an energy, unconditional love, than a person. And we should stop to think about God in these human forms. So that response, I don't think is a bad one. I don't know if it necessarily answers yes or no. It's a little bit of a dodge. Ashley Lee says, good question. So he, quote unquote, is one with us. God, damn it, where'd it go? Is much more an energy, unconditional love, than a person. And we should stop to think about God in these human forms. So this is more of Eastern religious view, more of a pagan view, that God is not necessarily an entity with sentient consciousness like we are. It's more of just an amalgam of all things and love and energy, which honestly I tend to lean towards that, because I can't seem to find a theology of the God doctrine that I can fully subscribe to. I think it's much more likely that we are all creating our existence through consciousness. If we did not have the consciousness that we have, I think that the universe would be much different. I think the fact that we're here to observe has shaped this form of reality. That's just, it would take a lot to get into, which I won't tonight, but okay. Robert Lonacci says, makes sense, but what about when we die? I think this all, what's it say? I think this all life is more complicated than what we see, like quantum physics. Yeah, Robert, that's a really good point. Life is definitely much more than what we see. In fact, that brings me to a really interesting thing that I read the other day. Apparently, scientists have discovered massive hidden galaxies. Hidden. I'm going to put emphasis on the word hidden. So these galaxies were not detectable before because it takes special equipment looking for light at a certain frequency that we've previously not been doing. So basically, to our normal telescopes and equipment, these galaxies, for all intents and purposes, were invisible. They were hidden. And when we used just a brand new way of looking at the universe, they became visible. We could see them. Not only that, but the existence of these galaxies, because of where they're located and the temperature of the stars and whatnot and so forth, it actually threw out our current understanding of how old the universe is and much of what we thought we knew about how the universe took its shape. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of people who disregard science, but at the same time, I'm not a big fan of taking science as our only influence that shapes our understandings and our worldview, because often science changes. What we thought we knew ends up not being the case. There's a better solution. And although we are becoming less scientifically ignorant, almost at every turn, it seems life is much more mischievous, much more elusive than we could ever imagine. We never seem to be able to figure it all out in a way that's copacetic with all our other scientific theories. There's always a wrench thrown in. And this makes me think that there's a lot more going on here than we currently have the tools to measure. Now, some people would say that eventually scientists will be so smart, humans will be so advanced that we will have the means to figure out everything. We will find the tools that we need to measure every anomaly, understand its working parts. To that, I say, get real and get over yourself. We still don't have any clue how the human brain works. We have no freaking clue. It's a complete baffling mystery that we've not even come close to figuring out, let alone the quantum realm, as my buddy there in the chat room brought up. The quantum physics breaks every law of normal physics. Stuff happens on the quantum realm that should never happen according to what humans think they understand about the nature of the universe. For all intents and purposes, quantum mechanics are, well, magic. Now, anytime you use the word magic, people get all kinds of pissed off because, well, magic implies something supernatural, something we can't explain. But don't we have that? Isn't that exactly what it is? Something that we can't explain? Something that we're probably never going to explain. Even if we do figure out all the working parts of the quantum realm, the universe, black holes, white holes, quasars, you name it, we'll still not understand why it all does what it does. We can figure out all day long, okay, well, if you create enough friction, a spark creates a flame. And that's how fire works. Yeah, but you didn't explain why. Why does it exist at all? Which I think is going to be a fundamental question that science will never answer. And if you're not asking the question why, then your worldview is extremely limited. Let me get back to the live chat. Okay. I no longer consider myself a Christian, says Linda James, but I do remember thinking as a Christian that if one has the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, then God is with us, as he said when he left, I am with you always. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of language in the Bible and in the Christian faith that kind of hints that you can become one with God. And my question to you as a believer of the Christian faith is, if you become one with God, doesn't that make you one with God, one entity? Which is a very pagan idea when you think about it. I think that it's something that's been grossly overlooked and should give you a little bit of pause, and you should really think about what the implications of that is. Let's see, any more comments? Did I miss any here? So yeah, guys, in the comments, help me understand or help answer this question. If you can pray internally and God hear your prayers, doesn't that mean on some level you are not separate entities, but you are one with God? Or can you explain to me how it works? Is there a way that you do this without being one with God? Does it even matter to you that, honestly, the implication of this is that you are not separate entities, as Christians would normally have you believe? Darth Vader says, I agree that we have really no clue, considering what we think we know, but believing in the supernatural with no way of measuring, why should we believe in a book of even less knowing humans? Yeah, okay. You know, like, I'm not really promoting any ideology here. I'm just promoting some thought, you know, some big picture questions be asked here. I'm not even promoting necessarily that you believe in the supernatural or any mystical thing like that. But I am sort of leading you to the door of, well, hey, this is something to consider. We could take a stance that this is just the way things are. You know, the Big Bang, the stars expanded, some gases slowed down. You know, science pretty much backs up a lot of that, and it makes perfect sense. But do you just take that at face value and say, okay, you wash your hands, all right, I'm done. That's all I need to know. I'm here just because I'm here. Do you ever stop and wonder why, you know? There has to be some broader implication, I think, than just what we are here today. I've seen too much beauty. I've seen too much personality, creativity, and wisdom from this very peculiar race that just suddenly became self-aware to just say, well, it just kind of happened, and the why question isn't important. I think a lot of people can live a very fulfilling life, never asking the question why. But for me personally, I want to know. I think that maybe it's very possible the meaning of life is for one of us to eventually figure it out. And I don't think that it's entirely necessary that you be a quantum physics expert to unlock the hidden mysteries of reality. I think that there are many other tools and avenues of thinking and exploring that one can take to figure out more or less the gist what all this is. And that's what I've always been trying to do on my channel. Let's see. Darth Vader says, I'm not pushing. I am very curious myself. Warren Pierce says, if you realize there can only be one conscious mind for all practical purposes, if you believe you will be saved at death, then you will be saved to the God cloud. This may be what happened to Enoch. All right, so he's humoring the idea that there is one consciousness that's connected, and that all of us are connected in that way to the God, quote unquote, consciousness. He's humoring the idea and calling it the God cloud. And he's talking about the afterlife being us returning to that cloud. Now you realize what you've just described there is reincarnation, right? I don't know if you're a Christian or not, but that perfectly describes reincarnation. Buddhists and Hindus, various other religions believe that we are essentially one energy. And we spend some time as an individual for, 60 to 100 years or whatever. And we die, and that energy is recycled. And I don't know, it's pretty obvious, I think, by now that I'm sort of, what's the word? I sort of favor this idea. Just because, think about what DNA is. Think about what instinct is. In our DNA, somewhere, we have what's called instinct. Sea turtles, when they're born, they hatch and they instinctively know where the coast is, straight out of the shell. They go to the coast and they swim off and live their lives. Years later, when it's time for them to have their own baby turtles, they go back to the exact spot or the exact coast that they were born. There's a there's a lot to unpack there. That's instinct. It's something they just in their genes understand and know how to do. It's an awareness straight out of the egg, without any trial and error. They didn't have to hatch and then make a map and practice a few times going out into the ocean and coming back to the exact spot where they were born. No, it's just in them. There are a lot of really cool instinct experiments that have been done with animals that it really blows you away how crazy instinct is. So where I was going with that is, to me, this kind of could be, in a way, an indication that reincarnation, at least on some level, is a thing. You could call DNA a form of reincarnation, I think. Let's see, where are we at here? Warren Pierce. Carlos Castaneda alluded to this in his famous series of books, reading them as a trip without drugs. Cool, I'll look into it. Robert Lunacci says, maybe the earth is just a learning ground for future life and spiritual realm. I kind of like that idea too. I think that there is maybe it's like this, all right? And I'm not talking like I know everything, and I'm open to new ideas and to change my own opinions, but here's a possible solution. I think it's very possible that behind the world of the physical, there is the spiritual. And the spiritual, you know, you can think of it as like all magic woo-woo or whatever if you want, but I'm mostly just using spiritual as a word to describe the polar opposite of physical. Now, a lot of you have probably heard me talk about duality a lot. If you think about it, every single aspect of light has a polar opposite. Good, bad, happy, sad, night, day, you know. Even the color wheel has an opposite. Short, long, fast, slow. You know, it just goes on and on and on and on and on, right? It seems to me that duality is a fundamental aspect of the mechanism that we're living in. I think that everything has to have an opposite. And when you think this way, if there is something called the physical, it only lends, it only makes sense that there's something that's the opposite of the physical. And I don't think that you could measure it with anything physical. And that's why scientists can't fucking find it or make it legit news on Time magazine, because it's not something that's tangible. It's not something that human tools would ever be able to attempt to measure and publish in their journals. I don't remember where I was going with that though. Let's see. So here's some more questions. Ashley says, I'd have so much to say about these issues, but it's too difficult to express in English. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. Darth Vader says, I've heard seemingly legit stories that I can't explain. There are a lot of people have experienced things that they can't explain. And it's funny, you know, we always discount the stories that other people tell us, you know, but all of us, I'd say 99% of us ourselves have stories, things that have happened that we just can't explain. We probably don't talk about it much if we're afraid to be labeled a certain kind of person around our peers. But anyways, Darth, let's see. Myself, I haven't ruled out the creator. Just being conscious is amazing. Yeah, I agree. I think that our consciousness in itself is like a deity. You look at how vast and just how massive and expansive the heavens are. You think about all the planets that we don't think they have anything like us. But here we are among this great void of anything that could remotely be called conscious. We popped out and suddenly we are being able to witness everything. I probably shouldn't have used that word, but but we are able to behold all of this. Not only that, but we're able to talk about it with each other. We're able to write about it. We're able to create songs about it. We're able to express how it makes us feel and dance and all kinds of other avenues. Yeah, I think that is huge. In that way, we are significantly important over the rest of everything else that's going on in the entire known universe. We're different. We're important. And I think that's kind of like a divinity in a way. Let's see. Linda James says, an entity is a thing with distinct and independent existence. So with the three persons of the one God, all three are an entity of themselves. Yeah, the Trinity is a big deal in a lot of Christian faiths, but Hindu, I don't know if you know this, the Hindus believe in a sort of Trinity as well. It's Vishnu, I think, Shiva, and what is the other one? Did I already say Krishna? No, I don't know. Or, damn, I can't remember what the third one is. But they definitely have a Trinity view as well. But on top of the Trinity idea of Hinduism, they also have, so many more gods. Like, there's a god for almost every aspect and avenue of existence. And they all consider all of these gods to be one and the same. They're all the one same entity. And so I just think that that's an interesting parallel to Christianity that maybe you didn't know about. Robert Lunacci says matter and antimatter. Yeah, that's a very important part of the duality that I was talking about. Matter and antimatter. Yeah. I think that how we started was likely a great war between matter and antimatter. I think that antimatter had the upper hand, but it only takes a little bit of something to defeat nothing. Let me say that again. It only takes a little bit of something to defeat nothing. Meaning the moment there's anything at all, you can't say there's nothing. No matter how small that something is. And I think that once there was something, once we were no longer just pure energy, perhaps that pure energy became a little bit impure. There was an explosion of matter. Antimatter was no longer winning. And, through the long process of explosion of this matter, eventually you get the product of our current universe. And I'd like to talk more about this because I've had a lot of new and interesting thoughts about this and how it's actually, I believe, repeating itself. I think that we are on a loop of sorts. I think that not only is everything connected, but there's really no such thing as time. That what happened 100 years ago is fundamentally attached to what's happening right in this very present moment. But that's a topic for another time. I'm really tired. I just got back home. I'm about to go inside. But it was a nice long trek from Venezuela, the jungle. Had a really good experience with the shamans there. They treated me well. They didn't feed me much. They insisted I just go hungry for like 3 days. This whole fasting thing, I tell you, no. All right, let's see. Couple more comments. Okay. Robert Lunacci says maybe the Bible was man's way of trying to explain our existence back in the day. I think that's very true. I think all theologies are just trying to explain our existence. And that's why I don't think theology should be totally dismissed. I think that theology is just trying to understand what all this is a little bit deeper than just learning how the working parts operate. And so for that reason, trying to attempt the why question, I don't think theology should be 100% automatically dismissed. I think they should, you should at least read up on them, think about them. And I don't want you to cherry pick. I want you to look at all theologies and, just try and figure out, is there any part of any of these that makes sense? Is there a way all of them have a little bit of truth, which I think is probably likely, right? Like, we can't all be wrong, and at the same time, it's very unlikely that just one theology is 100% correct, right? Pasta Babe Linda James says, fascinating info on Hinduism. Thanks. Native Americans have many gods that are the one creator too. Yes, very true. Darth Vader, if you really research the Bible, it seems it's still based on myths, although I appreciate that our past selves wanted to figure this out too. Yeah, I got nothing to say about that right now. I'm so tired. So Ashley says, I see it in a quite similar way, and time, we shouldn't forget, is a creation of us. Yes, time is actually a man-made construct. Time is just us trying to track one object moving to another, or one bit of matter moving from one spot to the next, how much time it takes for one object to get here to there. But really, life is just one big vibration, and we are along for the ride. We are in motion. We have momentum, and this momentum is what we view as being time. But if water is running in a circle tube with no gaps, it's all part of the same body of water. It's all completely connected. It doesn't matter where on the tube one drop is, that drop is connected to the entire body of water. And that, I feel, is a much better, gives you an idea. It's a metaphor for understanding what time really is, and what this whole mechanism this ride that we're on, like how it really is and the shape that it takes. But that's a whole video topic that I want to get into later. Darth Guido says, you are definitely onto something there, and I do believe we are all connected to the universe in multiple levels. I tend to agree. I believe the energy, be positive or negative, that we emit does have. All right, cool. So thanks, guys. I think this was a really good conversation. I really, really appreciate your comments and how engaging you were. Like, you guys really brought up some really good input and made this, I think, actually a tolerable podcast type thing. And I think I want to do it again sometime because of how awesome you guys were. Darth Vader says, thank you so much for your insights, and go to bed. You are tired, and so am I. Love these discussions. Awesome. What a great way to wrap this up. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. This is Ben Parker, a late night live stream. And I don't know, had some time to kill. It was fun. Have a good night.